the bingo question here is, well, what do you hope that'll cover? And let them talk. Maybe they just think it's a phase one. Maybe they think it's the whole project. Maybe they think it's an island in the Caribbean. Who knows what they think it's going to cover? You don't know that. Assumption will kick you in the guts 9 times out of 10.
Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a 7-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Sales Made Simple podcast. It's your host, Joshua Gillow. John Valenta is back with us this week, and we're digging through some of his recent conversations with customers in his pre-qualification system and some of the things that he keeps running into. And maybe you guys can resonate with some of this stuff. So, John, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a enjoyable spring of some great conversations, some not so great. We talked about last week getting hung up on. This time we're going to talk about one that was actually a nice conversation with a great guy that went very well, and just turned out that we couldn't help him, but we were able to find that out without going out there, wasting any time, gas, and meeting with him and doing any kind of design or estimate. And who knows if maybe he'll reach back out in the future when he can maybe move forward, or maybe he'll tell someone about us that he met us, and that we were able to have a great conversation on the phone. It didn't turn out that we could help him now, but maybe he'll know someone that we can help. And I always, when it comes towards the end, always ask for referrals, and ask for hey, if something changes in the future, please let us know.
Exactly. No, it's great because your focus is not just the cash in their pocket, but actually building a human-to-human relationship, right? That's the target of all this. And if we move our heart to that reality that we're building relationships, then it changes how we approach everything, right? So that's a really powerful piece there. So, John, take us through this project and exactly how that conversation went and how it ended.
Yeah, of course. And this was a good one. It was definitely, like, I feel like I built a relationship with this prospect, and I wouldn't be surprised if I heard from him in the future. So he actually sent me an email. I would say probably 8 or 9 out of 10 people call us the first time, and then maybe those 1 or 2 find our website and fill out our contact form, and then I end up calling them. So this was just an email. So if people that have kids that are a little bit older, how they don't talk on the phone, they text. So this
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
guy, a little younger than me, young family. They have one young child, and they expect to have more. So they're looking to, increase their usable outdoor living space for their small growing family. So it was kind of, real nice, getting to know this guy. We had a nice conversation about, the space he has, and it was just a small wooden deck and what's not working with it, and what he would hope to accomplish. And turned out he had a full 3D design of the project that he was able to email me. And it was multiple screenshots of this, big patio space with a pavilion and a walkway around to the driveway, and reconfigured the wood deck, and full color 3D design. So after he sent me that, we had another conversation, and I, said, "Oh, wow, this design looks great. Is this what you and your wife are hoping for? Is this gonna, work for your family?" And he's going on and on about how much he loved it, and how it would just work so great. And so I had to ask him. I said, "So where did you get this design? Did you do this yourself, or did you get someone to do it for you?" And you could tell he kind of got quiet, and it was a little bashful. And he said, "I feel a little bad, but another contractor gave this to me for free."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's shopping.
And yeah, and I didn't tell him, but I'm like, oh boy, that used to be me. And now, how happy I am to not be that guy anymore, because who knows how much time he spent, measuring everything on site and taking pictures and going back and doing a full 3D design. And he said, yeah, we got this from another contractor, and, we love the design, but the price was just out of our budget. Okay, well, that was a great piece of information to learn right
Mm.
there.
Oh yeah.
The design works, but it's out of his budget. Um, so I asked him about the budget, and he said, "We're really not looking to spend more than $20,000."
Mm.
And I'm looking at this patio that was, I don't remember, somewhere in the 600 to 800 square foot range. Walkway, the length of the house down to the driveway, full pavilion. I don't remember if it was maybe 16 by 20 or something. And two new sets of stairs off the deck down to the patio in the backyard. And I'm like, wow, I'm just looking at this real quick, like this is a 60 to $80,000 project in my mind. So I told him that just straight up, like, this is looking, more in like a 60 to 80,000 range. And he's like, yeah, that's great. I'm sure you do a great job, but I'm sorry, we just can't spend more than 20,000 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, I typically have, three options. Do you want to scale the project back to get it into, your budget? But if it's $20,000, we're gonna really have to make some tough decisions to make this project a lot different than the way it looks in this design. And he wasn't interested in that. And, the other option is to, phase it out over time, which is kind of similar. We're going to do a small part now and maybe a small part in a year or two. And he wasn't interested in that. And the last option is doing nothing an option. And it turns out that's the option he chose. Might not be forever. But for now, he's just going to live with what they have. What they really want and really dreamed about is just way out of their budget.
Yeah.
And I feel very fortunate that I was able to find that out before I went through what this other guy did, of meeting with him and doing
Yeah.
a full 3D design and proposal for a project that's, double or triple what they're able to invest right now.
This is so common, dude. So common. I'm sure there's not a listener out there that hasn't gone through this exact situation with a client expectation of $20,000 to cover, the patio, the pavilion, and what else was there? Was there a deck redo?
Yeah, deck redo. The main deck was going to stay. It was like two new sets of stairs off of the deck,
Hmm.
12 foot wide. And so there was a few $1,000s in carpentry there. And, you know,
Hmm.
it was probably about 800 something square feet of patio space and a 16 by 20 pavilion.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
which,
how, yeah, I mean, how often this happens, right? And listeners, we have to understand something. Most clients like this, they're not trying to take advantage of you. They're not trying to think maybe they're dumb and they're just going to take the carrot. Like, that's not what they're doing. They honestly don't know. They don't know what these things cost. $20,000 to some people sounds like an enormous, enormous, and it is. It's a lot of money, an enormous amount of money. And you're like, that should cover it. But they have no idea how to judge whether that's true or not until they get contractors to come out. And the first one, probably in the giving of his heart, giving a beautiful design and proposal, thinking we've got this in the bag, but never having a budget conversation. And then all of a sudden, boom, it comes out to whatever his number might have been. Maybe it's 60, 80,000 too. And the next thing you know, they're like, oh, we can't do that. What are we going to do? Now they feel like they're like, what are we going to do? Like that guy must be trying to take advantage of. We need to get a second opinion. And then they go to you, John, and you're like, that's probably 60 to 80 grand. And they're like, oh crap, that's two people now. And that's why I mean, if I had to guess on this side, and I'm only guessing, why they would put it on ice then is because they're like, well, we've gotten a couple of people telling us it's about, let's just say 60 to 80,000, not 20. We need to either save up or figure out something else because we're not going to be able to do this. But we have to understand that the intent of the customer isn't to be malicious or to be in any way misleading. They simply just don't know what these things cost. We do this every day. We see what pavilions cost, we know what patios cost, we know what reconfiguring deck steps cost or whatever else. But a customer doesn't know. And right now they are in the consideration phase of the sale. They're considering their options. What will my money buy me? I don't know. Let's ask a couple guys. And to my bigger point of all of this is if you're already doing the free design and then putting together your proposal and then presenting everything just to find out that their budget was $20,000 when it needs to be, say, $80,000, who's the fool here? Who's the fool? Listeners, you can make that decision for yourselves. But at the end of the day, imagine a world where we could discover that before we ever left the office, just like John just did. Where we already know that ahead of time. We've got maybe 15 or 20 minutes into this relationship. Are we rowing in the same direction? Are we playing the same game on the right field? Like, what are we doing? But to be able to lean into that conversation specifically around budget is really where the superpower comes in of guiding and leading customers because they don't know either. And if we can guide them on the phone to do that, if they say, well, yeah, of course, we expect it to be somewhere between 60 and 80 grand. Okay, green light, let's go. Not a red flag. So, John, as you receive that information and you're thinking through about how you used to do this, how does this change the game for you? The way that you used to, meet with customers and how you're pre-qualifying a little differently now. How does this change the game for you each and every time you hear stuff like this?
Oh, I love it. It's just such a great feeling knowing that I'm just more protective of my time and I'm not just running around like crazy to get that think about it or that no. And I'm spending my time on things that matter more, whether it's, running the business or working with clients that, are qualified and, we've agreed to work together or getting home from work a lot earlier and spending it with my family. So it makes work so much more enjoyable. It's more fulfilling knowing that I'm spending my time on people that value it and not wasting all this time on these tire kickers. And in this case, I wouldn't even call the guy a tire kicker. Like you said, most people have no idea what things cost.
That's right.
And had his hopes and dreams on this 20,000 covering everything, and I was able to in 15, 20 minutes get through all that with him and he had a lot of respect for me for being open and honest with him and I didn't waste a ton of time. It's such a great thing. It's like the catchphrase of recent years, a game changer, right?
Yeah.
No more wasting time and running around and you can help educate some people that have no idea with just asking the right questions over the phone without ever leaving your office.
100%. And, it's really about where your heart's located in this conversation. Because if you get frustrated with people who just don't get it and they just don't know how much this should cost, and you're coming at them with that tonality of frustration after a hard day's work, and then you're taking, a call or you're even showing up on site and they've got a $20,000 budget, it's an $80,000 project, and you're just like, oh my God, another one. Oh my goodness, like how many more of these are we going to have? Why don't these idiots know what this stuff costs? If you come in with that as your heart position, it'll come off that way. You'll come off as arrogant or short or whatever it might be. And maybe it's warranted. I don't know. It's possible. But what I'm recommending here is this idea that if you come in with a different heart set, if you come in with this different position thinking, well, maybe they just don't know. What would life look like if they just didn't know? And I'm here to be the one that leads and guides them, the trusted advisor through this and advise them on where they need to be in order to get what they want. You know, um, it's an important shift in knowing that perhaps they don't know. Perhaps they don't know. Maybe that is my position here. And a great question when someone gives you, I've got a $20,000 budget. The bingo question here is, well, what do you hope that'll cover? And let them talk. Maybe they just think it's a phase one. Maybe they think it's the whole project. Maybe they think it's an island in the Caribbean. Who knows what they think it's going to cover? You don't know that. Assumption will kick you in the guts 9 times out of 10, 95% of the time when you assume you're wrong. And our brain wants to do it. It wants to fill in the blanks. That's what it loves to do. It tries to save us and protect us and all that. But the reality is we are horrible at predicting things across the entire human race. It's not just contractors. So if we know that to be true, which it is, let's stop assuming and let's start asking. Because they might say something like, well, 20,000 now, but I get my bonus in 6 weeks and I might be able to consider some more of the project. It changes the game. It changes the game. Okay, cool. And maybe 20,000, say, okay, how much longer do you think you'd take you to save up the other 60 or whatever? Oh, maybe another year or two. Cool. Then you mind if I reach back out to you in, I don't know, whatever, a year from now? That sounds great. All right, let us know if we can be of service between now and then. We're here to help. And off they go. But the fact that he's already shopping somebody's design shows you that he doesn't respect the other guy, right? But this is so commonly done that guys just jump up, throw the design at him. Here's a price, disappear, go on to the next job. And they take that design and they're like, well, I can kind of sneak around with this a little bit and see if somebody else will give me a better price. I like the design. I just don't like the price. What if we had that conversation up front and we knew what kind of budget they even had to begin with so that we can start guiding them in a better way so they can actually get something for 20,000. And if it's still way out, let's do that in words instead of hours and hours and hours and hours of time. I've had plenty of people take our designs, even when we've charged for them, and take them to other people to bid. And sometimes they'll get them cheaper and they'll do it, and you'll drive by like, oh, that kind of looks like what we talked about. But the contractor gets creative, right? He's like, well, I can save you some money here. You don't need these railings. You can do this, or we're going to drop it down there. We're going to cut this out, or we're going to make the patio smaller here. We're going to separate it and put it over there. Like, and it just becomes a huge dumpster fire often from the original idea that was discovered during the discovery process. But ultimately, the customer has to live with it. But we have to think through this and think, all right, maybe the customer just doesn't know. What would life be like if that was true? How would we approach customers if we just thought, maybe they don't know? What do you think, John?
Yeah, they typically don't, and I think they also lean towards, you know, looking for other contractors to get other prices. Like, okay, we got a price of 60 to 80 and we only have 20. Let's call another contractor. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
get a better price.
Yeah.
And I think they do a lot of that. And a lot of that is because we've allowed it. And we run out there to give a free price just because people ask. And, it turns out in this case, they didn't get they didn't get a better price, calling another contractor. They got the same thing out of their budget. So, I think they're just gonna have to see if they can do it in the future. But yeah, most people don't know and have no idea, you know, what an outdoor living space costs, and typically will not have the budget or at least not be expecting it. I would say at least half or more people that I speak to on the phone, um, have no idea and are typically thinking the project in their mind is going to cost about half of what it actually will cost.
Yep, yep. And you can't. Another thing is you can't blame them. And it's the speed in which things are changing price wise now is obnoxious. I mean, when in history have we had prices change so fast? Before COVID, through COVID, and how fast the inflation was going on there, it was nuts. And we're about to heading right into that same time again. We're consistently trekking up higher than what the government's telling us. Just go to the grocery store and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, right? Everything costs more. $100 used to buy me a whole cart full of groceries for the family. Now it barely buys less than half of that now. And it's like, well, you're feeling it there. We feel it in all the materials and labor and all that kind of stuff now. So if someone was thinking about a project, say in 2018, and they did some pricing or they had somebody come out and give them a quote or a design or whatever, and they put it on hold. Now they're coming back to it. Their mind is set. Their expectation is still set back in 2018 with a little bit of adjustment for 2026. But they are like, that can't be that much. How would they know? They don't live in this world where they see this constantly going up and the cost of pavers going up, the cost of decking, the cost of plants, the cost of everything. I'm fuel at what, $4 for regular and almost $5 and $6 for diesel right now. Like everything is going up. But if they're not tracking it, how would they ever know that? Right? How would they ever know? If I asked you what were the price of potatoes this year, you'd be like, or today, you'd be like, I don't know, like, per ton. You're like, I don't know. I don't track that stuff. What's the price of sugar right now per ton or however it's sold? I don't know. I don't track that stuff. But people do. And if you ask them that question, they could tell you the last 5 years of how that it's moved in the markets. But since you're not close to it, you wouldn't know. And they don't know outdoor living just like we don't know potatoes or sugar and what it's doing. So we have to understand that that's a perspective. A great question to ask if you have somebody handing you a design or saying, hey, I had somebody else bid this project and I'm curious what your bid would be is, first of all, say, hey, thank you for the opportunity and the honor to take a look at this project. If you don't mind me asking, you're asking for permission. So if you don't mind me asking, what did the other company not offer you that you're still looking for? Silence, of course. Let them fill in. and oh, the price was too high, or they were not responsive, or I just didn't really get a good vibe from them, or they're too busy, or whatever it might be. And they're going to tell you something. And the question really is that something that you're either better at or it's going to be better with you or not? If it's a price thing, they're like, okay, either they were way high or this customer's looking for something that may not be realistic. Let's find out. We're detectives. Ask questions, get curious. That's really what this is all about. We've taken the bait in the past. Looking back, not so wisely. If someone that comes to us and says, "Hey, I have a design from a contractor, a local contractor, and you know what, we'd really like you guys to price this out." Well, are you in love with the design, or what was it that the other contractor didn't offer you? Well, yeah, but the price, we have a solid price of $210,000 for this project. We need to fit everything in there, and you 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 get the opportunity then to say, I want to play that game, or I don't want to play that game. Right. And I've taken that before. I'm like, oh, challenge. I love a challenge. We can do it. We're better. We can do it. We can do it for sure. Yeah, we'll figure out another way through, smart design. We'll be able to do this. And here's the crazy part, dude. We actually landed in the one I'm thinking about. We actually landed it on that number to the freaking dime. Everything they asked for was in that price. We could make it work. They had very few concessions. I think they had to go with stamped concrete over pavers, but it was something, they still got the same square footage, all of that. But at the end, they wanted to add things and have it in that same price. And that's where it starts pissing me off. When I come to you with a certain level, like, hey, we want the pool, the patio, the landscaping, the lighting, the boulder walls, the blah, blah, blah down the list. And you're like, okay, I'll commit to that. We can make that work. Looking at the numbers ahead of time before, and then we go back and actually redesign it so all that can fit. And then you're like, well, yeah, but we also want the staircase from the deck coming down, and we're going to want that water feature too. But we want that all in that 210. Like, in what world does that work? In what world can you just throw it in? And and I'm like, it's like, So it sounds to me like these clients feel like in some way they're being taken advantage of, and they feel like they're, that they should just be given this extra grace of extra stuff, because that's what contractors do. They take advantage of people, right? So with that being the case, at least in their minds, that they're like, all right, well, I deserve more. I'm entitled to more for my money. And it's like, no, it doesn't work. Not going to work. This is what it is. This is what I told you I would bring to the table, and we did, and we solved this problem for you. And here is the rate you told me we could work on, and here's the solution that represents all of that. What did I miss? Well, yeah, I want you to put other stuff. Well, I'm glad you want me to do that, but what did I miss based on our original conversation? And that they just end up packing up, getting pissed off, and heading to the next person who tries to do it for less. And eventually they do find the person who will, and then they complain the rest of their life because the damn thing falls apart. Because there's only so many corners you can cut in order to get that price where you want it to be. And some get so blind by trying to get so much for their money that they lose track of the quality that goes into making sure it lasts the test of time, right? One rainstorm comes and half their mulch and everything just washes away because maybe we should have some swaling around, right? Maybe we should direct the water away from the basement. But that wasn't part of the cheaper price. How about we think about how this could, in 5 years from now, impact the way you live in your property? But again, for some, and they're blind to those things. But we get the choice, listeners. We get the choice in who we engage with, and by having that conversation before you go out, you get a sense of who you're dealing with. Like in this case, with John having somebody who's trying to get $80,000 worth of work done at 20 without knowing the difference. I'll give him that grace. You just were a trusted advisor and led him to a solution, which maybe not be the solution he wants, but it's true. It's real. Truth doesn't have to hide. It doesn't have to keep itself entertained. Truth is just truth. So, John, now with that, how are you working toward, when it comes to screening customers coming in from discovery calls? How are you actively listening differently now with what you've read in the book and what you're adjusting in your process? How are you actively listening different to make sure you're listening for those yellow and red flags, and how to confront them instead of, I know in the past I used to just ignore them thinking they'll go away, right? But confront them ahead of time with, in a bold way on the phone.
Yeah, a lot of listening, letting them talk and taking a lot of notes. Sometimes, it gets a little quiet on the phone, but that's good because I'm taking notes, and then they'll, instinctively fill that silence and tell me more without me even having to ask. Telling me more and just getting more and more information about their project, why they want it, what they're hoping to accomplish, how it's going to work for their family, how they're going to use it, when they want it done. And of course, the budget is a big one that I was never comfortable asking on the first phone call. I always felt the need to look at them face to face, build some rapport, get to know them, which does help. Um, but I would never ask about budget or bring it up at all on that first phone call. And it's been good. Most people appreciate it. They'll, let me know, what they're hoping to invest in the project, and most of the time it's nowhere near what the project will actually cost.
Mm,
Um, and some people will actually just say, I have no idea.
mhm.
I'm shopping. I have no idea what this is going to cost. That's why I called you. And we'll talk about it. I'll get as much information as I can over the phone, so then I can say, we've done a few projects recently that sound similar to yours, and this is what it cost. Is that what you were hoping to invest in your project?
Yeah.
And then I'll get it. I'll either get, yeah, that sounds about right, or I'll get, oh, no, that's, twice as much than I was hoping to invest. So man, there we go. There now we have a budget and we know what they're hoping to invest in the project, then whether we can help them or not and give them those options, making it smaller, doing it in phases, or just not doing it at all. And it's
Yep.
all on that first phone call. And
Yeah.
it's saving me a tremendous amount of time. And it's, other than getting hung up on those couple of times, it's very enjoyable. And I feel like, I'm serving them better by giving them this information right on that phone call about what their project will cost. If they obviously they have some sort of limit and they don't want to tell me, but I can give them an idea. Okay. The last couple of patios we did were, 60 to 70,000. Sounds about similar to the project you're describing. Does that sound like what you're hoping to invest in this project? And I use the word invest, not spend, or even worse than that. Is this what you can afford?
Mm.
You might get hung up on if you say that.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
No, that's great, dude. It's very important, listeners out there. I hope you're grabbing nuggets from this because it is so true. And it was one of the conversations I know that I struggled the most with internally was talking about money over the phone. That's why we ask for some pictures of the design, or not the design, sorry, of the backyard as it exists now before I had this call with the client. So they get a sense of what's actually there. So we can look around because, there's a huge difference between a backyard that has plenty of access from all sides, easy to get to, park materials, everything on, and the one with the 3-foot gate on the cliffside, right? There's a huge difference in what things are going to cost. So having those preliminary pictures ahead of time before this call is made certainly gives you an idea. And with Google Earth now and everything, you can just zoom right into somebody's backyard quickly and be able to see us, get a sense of what was there. You just don't know. I mean, you do know when the picture was taken, it's written right there on Google, but you don't know how much has changed between then and now. So having recent pictures ahead of time is very helpful so that you can see what's happening there. But when it comes down to the budget side of things, it's just about being honest, right? And setting an expectation. You don't want to shoot low or you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You don't want to shoot super high because then you might push them away. So there is a sweet spot in the middle, but it's really about getting or creating an environment where the customer feels comfortable enough with you and trusts you enough to give you more of an honest number. And that's what we teach in the book. That's what we teach in our courses on how to set that up and build that relationship with your customer that they feel open and almost not obligated. It's not necessarily the right word, but they feel like it's going to help everybody if they're just being honest with you and where they're at. And in that, they have the opportunity to make it simpler for them and for you. And if the numbers just don't line up, they don't line up. It's okay. And if they do line up, great, let's keep moving forward. But we can do all of that in the office before we ever leave and go out and meet them on site. And, because in the past, when I would avoid the budget conversation, every time you walk on site, it felt like you were walking through a minefield. You didn't know when you're going to step on it. Right. And then all your time is blown up. You're just like, oh man, it didn't even work. I can't even count how many times I could write a book on that all by myself of nothing more than just me dictating all the times and the projects that I went out on with, high on hopium, hoping like crazy that these customers are going to say yes. If I could just get out there, I could meet with them and all of this kind of stuff. And to find out I had no pre-qualification in the front, no discovery call, none of that stuff. I just went out and man, yeah. So I say this because it is important for us to think about our time. And if you've been doing it one way forever, both John and I shifted and we went into doing discovery calls ahead of time so that we didn't have to deal with that as often. Now, it does not mean if you do a discovery call that every single client is going to become a client. No, but there's a much, much higher level of possibility of them becoming customers for you because you're spending the time with them. You're getting all of the stuff that's, well, it blows up later. We're getting that out of the way now. So many times you see these guys on Instagram and Facebook and they jump up and they tell you about how to bust objections and, oh, this is what you say when he says this, she says that, you say this, and like all this stupid malarkey. And I was like, why are we getting to the objection anyway? Haven't we handled that like on day one? Why haven't we proactively had the conversation that tickles out those objections early, whether it's a price or a timing or it's a design or whatever it might be? Like, what is it that's going to be the objection? Let's tickle that out up front and then either let that person go way ahead when we find out that budgets don't align or any of those other things and not wait until it's too late in the process when you've already have all your time invested and then find out that budget was the problem or they had a different idea about what the design was supposed to be, or the decision maker that wouldn't show up that shows up and blows the entire deal up at the last minute. Like, what if we ironed all that out before we ever invested time in that customer? And that's what the discovery call does. It irons those out so the objections, they don't come as often later because all that's been understood from day one. And if they don't fit, they don't fit. Oh, John, I could talk about this for days. It's something that has absolutely brought so much peace and clarity back to my life in the life of my teams as well. And obviously you and others that are reading the book that are starting to set up, discovery calls and pre-qualification in place, and not so you can be difficult, but so that you can serve at the highest level and be present for the clients who truly want to pay you premium for your services because you're awesome at what you build. I would say that 95% of contractors in our industry are really, really good builders. They build quality. They care about what they build. They put a lot of heart and passion into it. There's a 5% that are just out to take advantage of people that are always there. But I would say the huge majority, they have their heart in the right place. It's just a matter of, are we pointing it toward the right people? That's the question. So, John, anything else you want to land on us as we wrap it up?
You pretty much summed it up. Yeah, definitely finding the right people that are a good fit for you and that you can serve and that value your time. It's great to be able to go through the people that call you and find the ones that are a good fit and then focus your time on them and serve them, and you'll get a referral partner and client for life that'll have you back many times to do additional projects and tell everybody about you because you're able to serve them really well and you weren't distracted by all these other people that weren't going to value your time or give you any business.
Exactly. And listeners, think each one of your customers has a friend circle, not necessarily really close friends, but friend circle of at least 100 people, right? There's 100 people that are in their lives, so 100 people that they could talk to about the great work you did. But if you are just giving them a little bit because everybody's trying to take your time, that aren't going to say yes to you, but still want your time, if you're giving them just the minimum, the chance of that actually turning into 100 people that now know your name is very, very slim. It's when you spend the time, build the relationships, and you do a great job, and they feel like the only customer you're serving at that point that they start to talk to all their friends about how amazing it was to work with you. And that is money in the bank. That's the way I look at it. And I love working with customers that are referrals or boomerangs that come back after we've done one thing. They do a second project or a third project. That happens all the time for us. And it happens because each of our customers feel like they're the only customer that we're serving at that moment because our pipeline isn't clogged with a bunch of tire kickers that are trying to suck the time out of our day. We know when we go out that we have at least an 80 to 90% chance that we're going to move forward this project or we're not going out. It's very simple. And our customers love it. We get referrals left and right from people that we tell no. I know that sounds completely counterintuitive, like it's not possible, but clients don't want to waste their time either. They just don't know what to do next. Remember, we're taking them from uncertainty to certainty, and they don't know what to do. They're still stuck in uncertainty, and they're hoping we can provide clarity. So with that, listeners, think about it this week. How can you provide more clarity and a deeper conversation with your customer up front so that in your own heart that you're not going to be wasting time with people who don't value you or don't have a way of being able to afford your projects or what you do, and how can you add more clarity and more value to them during a discovery call process. And if you haven't picked up the book yet, it's on Amazon. It's the Core 10 Sales Playbook. It'll go through this with you and show you exactly how to do it. Um, and if you want to train and figure out how to do this in your own company, how to integrate, we also do that as well. But just, if anything, take the stuff that we're talking about here, that John and I are talking about, and think about what's one thing that you can integrate this week. What's one thing that we've talked about that could change everything for you, or even just change a little bit for you? Think of one thing, because we've talked about a lot of things. Think of one thing. Maybe it's a different question, a different process, a different way that you approach how you meet your customers. Just one thing. Pick your one thing and get out there and rep it out, try it out, and fix it until it works. All right, John, I appreciate you coming on. And everyone out there listening, thank you for listening, and we'll be back with you next week.